All right, so let's get started with predicting the race now. And whenever we do start, before we get into anything, I ask you, how many drivers do we all have the same each week? And as far as our picks, and they usually range from like 2 to 5. This week is the first week, I think, ever that we do not have a single driver that we all agreed upon.
Wow. I don't remember that ever happening. So yeah, this is probably the first.
And it's got to be a dirt race, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
Yep.
Part of that is because, again, I went with a different strategy. I did not take either of the 3 favorites. I just went against it. They haven't won yet, and until they win one of these dirt races, I'm just going to go against that particular trend. That is a trend so far, if you want to call 2 races a trend. So let's see. CJ, you both, by the way, took all 3. I took none of them. So you got Larson at 5-1, Bell and Reddick at 6-1. Now, when this started a couple of years ago, it was all about Larson and Bell. Those were the 2 heavy favorites. Those were the okay. Bell had the crash in 21. Larson, I don't know what he did. He also got into trouble?
He got caught up in a crash.
So they both got taken out. Larson last year finished 4th, led 27 laps, but really didn't look like he was anything special in my mind. Bell finished 7th, and the same thing. He didn't look like. So Reddick looks like the guy out of the 3 that if I was going to put money on, the reason I decided not to, though, is he just won 2 races in the last 3. But we know how good he was last year. He led 99 laps, would have won if he wasn't taken out, was 7th in 21. So that's the way I would go with Reddick if I was going to take any of the 3. But I just decided to, until a favorite wins this race, I'm not going to go in that direction.
And it's hard. And these guys have said, too, I mean, they've all 3 obviously got dirt racing background, extensively more Larson, Bell. And I know over the year, or maybe the last year or so, talking with those drivers, have all mentioned that running a NASCAR on dirt, you would think, because that's always the question, does dirt experience pay off for these cars at Bristol since it's so new? You would think, hey, these guys have won Chili Bowls and Turkey Nights and the Hoosier 100 and Knoxville and Eldora, that, hey, these should be the ones to beat. However, they've cautioned, this is a car not made for dirt. We've done our damage on cars made for dirt. It's completely different running on a track that the suspension is not made to what it needs to do for what you like the feeling of the car.
Is that because it's a heavier car?
It is. It's a lot heavier than these dirt cars. And I think like even a late model, it's like 1,000 pounds more weight to the Cup car than it is a late model. And it's way more than a midget. And like they said, because they're used to entering these corners, high rates of speed, letting all up, hang loose, let the back end come out, slide through and pick up the throttle. And they're just really, it's an art. You can't do that in a Cup car. It's too heavy. The suspension is not made to handle that. So in order for them to use their dirt experience, you kind of have to forget everything you've learned from your dirt experience because it doesn't pay off. That's why some of these newer guys that are winning is like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel on dirt anyway, so I'm just going to race it how I'm supposed to. So in the third year, I think that they probably have learned enough where they should. Now, granted, 2 different cars from the first, or different car from the first year. So, but this is the second time with this car. So they're running good on the season. But as you said, Reddick, in the next gen, if not for Chase Briscoe, and granted, as we talked about, he just had to make the move to go for the win. He wasn't just going to ride in second. It didn't help him, and he already had a win. Reddick was going to win this race last year. So you look at that standpoint, he's kind of figured out. I don't see him going backwards when he's been this good anyways. But I also looked. The top 5 at the inaugural race, 30-1 won, 14-1 was second, 25-1 was third, 100-1 fourth, 50-1 fifth, 66-1 sixth, and 25-1 led the most laps. Last year, 18-1 won, 14-1 was second, 8-1 third, 6-1 fourth, Larson, and Blaney 16-1 was fifth. So the longer shots are finishing up
Yes.
front. And if you want to follow trends, you got to think that's probably better off looking deeper. So we'll see. This race this year is probably going to tell us more trends for the future.
This is it.
So we kind of have to get through it, but.
So you would go with Reddick above the other two, or who would you go with as your top pick?
Yeah, just because he's proven. It's hard to know because again, it feels like it's a guess, but at least you have an educated guess with him, as you said. I mean, leading 99 laps from a front row starting spot,
and he should have won
last year with this car. It should have won. When Larson was good and Bell was seventh, he also started up front. Reddick started third, Bell was second, but he also was better. So I would lean that way. But again, we'll see what Sunday holds.
All right. Next up, we have Byron, Logano, and Briscoe at 10-1. And Byron was 6th in 21, but with the new car, he was 18th last year. So we all decided to pass on Byron this week. But Logano and Briscoe, you and I did not pass on them. CJ did. And that's, again, another reason why we didn't all pick the same drivers. But you and I both went with Logano and Briscoe, and I just felt this was a no-brainer because if Logano ends up like in the top 5 or he wins the race, one of those things, it's like, all right, well, there you go. I mean, he's the man on dirt.
He's proven that, yeah.
So that's why I can't pass on him this week because he could be the man.
Yep.
Briscoe, after keeping in mind that part of the reason he did what he did last week was because last year he did feel like he was possibly the best car. So he was going to try to win that race, and it didn't work out for him. But, he led 59 laps, and he also, I believe, had a top 5 in the truck race on dirt in 21. So he seems to be pretty good at the dirt tracks there at the Briscoe over the last couple of years. 10-1, that's the only thing. But when I'm not taking the top 3 drivers, makes it a lot easier for me to take Logano and Briscoe at 10-1.
It's baffling again that Byron's sitting there at 10. He's got no dirt background, and you look at what about him? 6th and 20 again is a different car. 18th last year, started 19th. What about him should be 10-1? It's like that was the most easiest I'm eliminating him. He said like Logano.
And by the way, William Byron has basically been hit or miss this year. It's not like he's been either top 5 winning or he's outside the top 20.
Yep. And he's been taken out. It's just this isn't the week that I'm going to waste the 10-1 on William Byron.
No.
This isn't the track. Logano, you said, if Logano comes with another top 5, I mean top 3, he's got 2 straight top 3s. He started 10th both years. He's getting him for 10-1. That seems like a bargain right there. And then Briscoe, he's a dirt guy by nature too. He's a sprint car driver. He's raced midgets. He knows what it's like to race the car like that on the dirt. And the fact that he's probably, his finishes don't indicate it, but he's probably the better of the dirt guys on this track. Because, yes, 22nd last year, but he started 4th. He was running 2nd on that final lap. This year he needs a win, whereas last year he already had a win. I think he'd be a little more calculated, meticulous in how he could get that win. And you're getting him at 10-1. I thought that too was it's almost insulting for them to have Byron listed with them. It's like, well, what has he done to get
no.
And Logano's running the truck race again this weekend, so he's going to have experience again. And he finished 6th in the truck race last year. So if he gets another top 6, that's 4 top 6s in 4 tries on that track behind me. Yeah, it's 10-1 was a no-brainer that direction.
By the way, this is as good a time as any to blame Eric again, the reason why we're starting on Thursday. But this was a justified reason. Even, I mean, family is important. And when you got to take the family out, you can take the family out. So you had a little day off.
Which allows me to keep doing this, so it's not getting yelled at for still doing it. So, hopefully we're at the mercy. I would hope the IndyCar teleconference.
It better not be. Watch, it'll be on Tuesday, and then it'll be like, oh, yeah, we're going to do Tuesdays now all year.
Yeah. And if they do, can you just do it in the morning?
I know, right?
Like Tuesday's a weird. It was always Wednesday. Since the pandemic hit, when they started doing this, they haven't stopped. It was always on Wednesdays, right in the middle of the week. So I'm hoping
Fingers crossed.
maybe it's back.
So keep that in
So we'll
mind.
see.
If you don't see us on
Yep.
Tuesday next week, you know why. All right.
Yep. The Indy.
Yep. Kyle Busch, 12-1, the defending champ, as we mentioned, but the lucky, he stole the race. Didn't do much in 21. You guys both put a little bit of money on him, and I was the only one to stay away. So what about Kyle?
The only reason I did was he did win last year, so that he was third for majority of that final stage. Yep, and he's got the car that led 99 laps last year. So I thought, well, for 12-1, and he's got that car, I would feel foolish if he did end up getting the win, and he was 12-1 with that car. So that's the only reason I went that. The only reason is because I used that car as a benchmark. But are we really going to see him win 2 of the 3 races at the race that he's dogged from? Yeah. It just doesn't seem likely. But for 12-1, I'm like, I got to go in that direction.
Okay, 15-1. Now, I put money on Blaney, and CJ put money on Chastain, and you skipped both 15-1 drivers. The reason I put money on Blaney is because if you look at both races, he actually did pretty well. You know, not just the results, but, you know, they were real results. You know, 5th last year and 8th the year before that. Matter of fact, he finished 8th the first time out, and he got into a big kind of pile up almost, and still ended up finishing 8th. So I'd like to see what he could do if he actually had the lead in one of these races. But yeah, I just felt that 15-1. He's been solid here, so it hasn't been a problem for him. And Chastain, I did stay away from. He's got the 2 bad results, 1 engine, 1 wreck. So it's like, well, I mean, Chastain at 15-1 is maybe a decent bargain as Suarez's teammate. We'll talk about Suarez in a bit. But I just kind of felt this was the week to take off for Chastain.
Yeah, I felt I was out of money at this point because I had 80 or 92 of my 100 allotted dollars already spent. So I'm like, well, that's the only reason, because I had Blaney. And I was like, how do I finagle a way to get Blaney? But the reason Kyle won out is because he won, and Blaney's ran that winless streak. I'm like, he's another guy that just keeps finding ways to lose. But he's been solid. I feel like 15-1 is a bargain for 8th and 5th. Chastain, I have no idea why he's 15-1. Like Byron, I feel like him and Suarez would flip. I mean, because like you said, his finishes are 35th and 33rd. You mentioned, I'm not a dirt guy. I'm not comfortable on dirt. This isn't my type of racing. 15-1 was just foolish. I'm like, there would be absolutely no way. He should be. If Martin Truex Jr. is 25-1, why is Chastain not 25? That just made zero sense to me. I'll go on. I mean, I'll eat crow next week if he does, but I'm going to say it. There's a 99.9% chance Chastain is not winning on Sunday. So I'm not going to waste money that direction. It's just not going to happen.
All right. So at 18-1, now CJ and I put money on Hamlin, and he did finish a solid 3rd in 21. So last year he had engine problems, so I'm throwing that out. This play, and I do not like the way Hamlin's going so far this year. You talk about finding ways to lose. But the only reason I did this is because I looked at, and here's another thing that might be a trend, is we had 2 veteran championship, not that Hamlin's a championship driver, but you get my gist, 2 veteran drivers, championship pedigree, with good odds. Fitz Hamlin, he's 18-1, championship type guy. He's a veteran. That's the only reason, because maybe that's a trend that we'll see is a Harvick or a Hamlin win this week. One of those guys with long shot money.
It would make sense, and he's right around that wheelhouse of the 18-1. Finished 3rd, started 2nd, inaugural year. Plus, and I make this in light because I like Kenny and we follow each other on social media and banter back and forth sometimes in positive ways. But so that's why I preface my saying I don't mean this to take a shot at him, but there's no live pit stops. He's not going to be speeding on pit road to take him out of a race win this week, which has done that more times than not this year. He's had race-winning cars. He's just sped, and he's had to come from behind. He doesn't have to worry about that this week. You cannot pit under – I mean, if you do, 1, it's going to be a massive loss. You're going to lose a ton of laps. It's going to end your race. But 2, you're not – it's not even really allowed. You stop on the stage breaks to the pit. So there is no speeding. You're going to pull in, you're going to stop, and the fuel-only guys will come out ahead of the guys that took 2 tires, and the 2 tires guys will come out ahead of the guys that took 4 tires in the order that you picked. So I have a feeling he's going to be running up front. It's just, can he, again, it's dirt. It's going to be up to the luck factor. But 18-1 was a bargain. And again, I looked at him too. But then with all the other guys, I had there's no way I can afford, because I had $8 already invested below them that I felt good about those guys. So he's a good pick, and so is the next guy.
See, that's what I'm saying. We had a whole bunch of a different strategy, and because you used up your money early and I didn't, I had the money to spend it. You didn't with some of these drivers. Yep. Now Stenhouse is 20-1. CJ did go to Stenhouse, finished second and 21. Didn't do anything last year, but for Ricky Stenhouse to win 2 races at this stage of the season would be pretty remarkable.
It'd be tough. Yeah, that's the reason he's a solid pick, but I didn't have him initially. I was like, would he really win 2 of the first 8 races? I don't see that happening. I mean, he's a dirt guy by nature, and he did finish runner-up that first year, but that 29th last year scared me. He's a solid play for somebody that has avoided the favorites, kind of like you did. So if you got buyers out there, they're like, hey, look, I'm not going to go to the favorites. I'm going to go longer shots. It doesn't hurt to throw a few bucks his way since he's 20-1, but it is a big gamble, which is what this is gambling, that he's going to win 2 of the first 8 races. It's just,
I'll bet against that.
In the year of parity, it'd be hard to see that happen.
Okay, now at 25-1, CJ went with none of these drivers. You went with 1. I went with all 3. So again, I had the money down here in Bowman, Suarez, and Truex. I put the most on Suarez, then Truex, then Bowman. So I invested $33 in these 3 drivers out of my 100. So Bowman, 6th last year. And what was impressive about that was that he got in trouble like twice in the race. And then you looked up, and how the hell did he finish 6th? I thought he was like out of the race almost. And so that was impressive. Meanwhile, and he's 25-1. So you got 6th place, trouble twice, 25-1, leading the points, running a Chevy. And then you have Suarez, as we talked about. You went over that. 64 laps, 58 laps, 12th and 4th. Truex. The results weren't good, but he led 126, as you mentioned, in the first race. And not sure what happened last year, why he didn't, why it didn't work for him. But I think that's the main reason he's 25-1. But he also won the truck race in 21. So, I don't know if it's something to do with the new car that, hey, I can't do road courses and I can't do dirt like I used to with this new car. Maybe that's the case. And I sure, if he has a bad result, I'll remember that and maybe skip him next time. But I'll give him another go around, and that's why I definitely went with all 3 of these drivers.
If I didn't have Briscoe and Kyle, I would have, like you, I'd have had all 3. Again, this is out of the money. Bowman, all the reasons you mentioned. He's the points leader. He's at the top 10 in all but 1 race. He's a dirt guy. He's a sprint car guy. He knows what he's doing. He hasn't won since Vegas last year. He's due for a win. And it'd just be foolish with the points leader who's good on dirt is 25-1. You don't take him. That's just automatic. You have to take him. Suarez, like you said, the only reason I just went with Kyle because he won here last year, but Suarez has been good here. It's just his stats recently have taken a nosedive. He needs to get those back up. On there. No, and Truex goes into your theory. The past champions, that 25-1, he's in that wheelhouse. Yes. He's won there before. He's had it. Maybe he just didn't grasp the next gen on this track last year. But the key is he raced on it last year with the car. So he knows what to do differently this year. He's a champion for a reason. He's a guy that knows what he's doing. He'll figure this out. He's 25-1. So I'd say all 3 are just solid plays for 20. I think your winner, it would be the burning question would be, does your winner come from the 25-1 group or the 5 and 6 to 1 group? Maybe. I think you can make a strong case your 25-1 group has a better chance than those guys up top. Yeah. So it's an interesting play, but I do like all 3 of those drivers if you have enough money to snag them
There you
all.
go. And then the 30-1 teammates, Kozlowski and Buescher. And I put a few bucks on Kozlowski. I'm the only one. Nobody put money on Buescher. Buescher, a couple top 15s here. Kozlowski, 11th in both races. So I figured, all right, again, same thing. Veteran championship driver, 11th place finishes are okay. Nothing wrong with that. Having a good year, 30-1, that fits the model for me to throw at least a few bucks on him.
And you got to remember, right? Granted, you're not taking anything from this to this. However, the same track last year in September, they're the top two cars on the concrete.
Oh, really?
Remember, Buescher won. Remember, he won the Bristol race.
That's right.
And Kozlowski led in almost 200 laps, but he had that tire go down, which handed the win to Buescher. So they've got Bristol figured out. And so can they just win two in a row there on concrete and dirt? And they're solid enough. Again, like you said, both races they've been in the top 15. And they seem better this year obviously, than last year. So you got to think that top 15 becomes top 10. And if you see anything that happened like the end of last year, this top 10 could end up being top 5. We've seen that growth. And then you have a couple of guys in front take themselves out, just like Kyle was. Hey, you took your out here to win.
Never know.
Those guys running third, fourth, be right there to win. So for 30-1, that's good odds for guys
absolutely.
Like that.
Now, after this point, we all had a couple of drivers. You had money on Bowman, of course, but your deepest long shot's coming. So you have one long shot, CJ has 2, and I have 2. So I put a little bit of money on Harvick at 40-1, same MO, and my crazy pick was I put a couple bucks on Gilliland. I'm not sure I ever put any money on Gilliland. CJ put a few bucks on Dylan, Austin, and a buck. And I'm assuming he did this because he just figured this is just crazy. He put a buck on LaJoy at 1,001.
Yeah.
And then you put $3 on Haley at 80-1. So talk about the rest of the long shots and why you put money on Haley.
Yeah, Harvick's interesting. He doesn't like the track, but again, the past champion theory, he's done this enough.
He's a Briscoe teammate. This is the one race a year where Harvick will go to Briscoe.
Yep, and you get it for 40-1.
Yeah.
So Dylan, I thought about, but he's a dirt guy. He's raced late models, but then again, I thought of they've also said late models don't translate to Cup cars on dirt. And you look at his finishes, 21st and 31st. I'm like, And then you look at his finishes this year, and I think this is a big year for this year to prove it. Look at Kyle's done. Look at what Reddick's done. And then you look at Austin, 33rd, 9th, 27th, 16th, 20th, 33rd, 25th. He's not even close. So I wonder it almost seems like he's being exposed. You thought Reddick, we knew that would happen, that he'd eventually come around. And Dylan won Daytona, and you thought with Kyle coming in and how they listened to Clash and how they had similar driving styles that they like out of the cars that, okay, this is going to be Dylan's consistent breakout year. He almost seems worse.
Did he have any major changes to his team?
No, it's pretty much the same 3 team.
It's crazy.
And you look at Kyle and see how good his first year and what he's doing. And it's like, I don't like the 50-1 to me was I thought he should have probably been with his brother at 80 because he's been 80-1 these last few weeks. So punted there. Davenport, dirt guy. Again, we talked about how past dirt cars do not translate to this Cup car. And you look at some of the guys in the past that have done that. It didn't work out well for him, so I don't know why it was with him. Bubba, 27th, 28th, 2 finishes. Yes, he won Eldora Trucks years ago. His confidence, I know they finally talked about on the broadcast last week and kind of called him out for it, how you can't have that mindset. And
he actually looked pretty good there for a while.
He did, and then his finish,
22nd.
What was he, 22nd?
I don't know what happened, but it's
not somebody you're going to take a risk on. Ty Dillon just seems out to lunch. Ty Gibbs probably going to finish 9th.
Probably.
He seems 3 weeks in a row, so I'll come to Haley in a second.
McDowell was a possibility because of the 2 top 15 finishes.
Yep, Priest is a late late model modified. He's an asphalt guy, so 80-1 for the steep. Allmendinger, just no dirt experience. And then the rest of the guys like Cindric, 16th last year. It was it almost worth putting $1 to 150? I'm like, yeah, I'd rather spend it on Haley, which I'll get to. Eric Jones,
he's like Dylan.
Year.
It's like, some of these guys are just scratching their head at what's going on after the way they looked last year.
It is, and that's why the rest of the guys, I'm like, yeah, not going to touch. But Haley, dirt guy by nature. That guy, during speed weeks, he raced a lot down in Volusia County. I think he ran a couple races in Ocala. He won almost all of them.
Okay.
So he's got that momentum. He was 14th last year. Started 6th.
Starting 6th is good.
Yep. So he's only raced the next gen on here. He didn't race the previous car, so he only knows this car. He needs to run well. We've seen the calling, the penalties, and all that.
That's another driver that was improving last year, and we thought, hey, maybe he could take a step up, and he's taking a step back.
Yep, and this would be the time for him to go out and win this, especially after these calling penalties that just happened yesterday. That just completely opposite of what happened with Hendrick. It would just be fitting that he goes out and wins this race on Sunday. Just kind of stick it back to him, like, ha-ha.
Worth a buck.
It is, and you get him for 80 to 1. That's why I went 3 to win. It's like, I can make some money back on this one. I just felt like 80, he probably should be 40 or 50. Yeah. And Josh Berry has no dirt experience, and he's in Chase Elliott's car, and the fact he put him in at 40 to 1 just made zero sense to me. He's double the odds for a dirt racer by nature, and was respectable here last year. So, plus, he's good at these obscure events. You got to look at 5 of his 8 Cup or Xfinity wins are on super speedways. Remember the Clash? He keeps winning heat races and is running up front on a random track like the football stadium. Why not? Why not here to win? So I thought for 80 to 1, that's going to be my long shot sleeper.
I'll put a buck on him. All right, so top 3.
Sounds cliche to go to the top. I'm going to say Reddick. I'm going to say Reddick, Bell, and then I'll go a little bit further. I'll go Briscoe. I just feel good about those 3.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Briscoe, and then I'm going to go Bowman and Suarez.